Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Trades Talk. I've got a special guest in the studio with me today, Tom Heaviland of Verde Property Services. Tom, welcome to Trades Talk.
Thank you, Justin. It's a real privilege to be here. I appreciate being your guest today. Looking forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Tom. Well, I'm looking forward to having you on here. You and I have got to exchange quite a bit of knowledge and ideas and industry insights over the last couple of years as we've seen each other at these amazing conferences that we go to. And so when I had the chance to get you on the show, I jumped at that. And what we're going to talk about, guys, today for all the guests listening is we're going to talk about Tom's story. And through that story, we're going to really talk about, M&A. We're going to talk about selling businesses, buying businesses, how to make your business more valuable. Whether you're ready to sell or you think you never want to sell, it's important to have a business that is exit ready and valuable. So, Tom, I'd love for you to take us through a little bit of your journey, at least the highlights of starting Heaviland Landscape Services in San Diego and then eventually selling that and where you're at today. Would love just to hear that highlighted story for us.
Sure. Yeah, well, it's an interesting story, and I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. But back in 1985, that was well before your time, Justin, and probably a lot of your listeners.
Yeah, just a few years.
It was my first visit to California, and to visit my dad and his family. My stepmom and their kids had never been to California, Carlsbad. My dad, my brother, and I were playing golf at Torrey Pines. Nice. Beautiful morning, and my dad was sharing, hey, there's this little landscape company for sale that I'm looking at, and it sounds kind of interesting. And I said, well, I'd be interested in looking at it with you. Don't ask me why I said that or what prompted me. I was working for a large wood window and door manufacturer out of Minnesota and traveling cross country with our distributors on a national level. So just kind of timed my West Coast swing to visit them at Christmas. So after golf, we took a look at this kind of abbreviated SIM, if you will, and kind of got excited about it. And one thing led to another. We ended up buying this small commercial landscape company located primarily in an industrial park up in Carlsbad. We paid $133,000 for it. Wow. My dad, my stepmother, and I each put up $11,000, so $33,000 down. The owner carried back a $100,000 note for 10 years, and so we were off to the races. We had one truck and a couple of workers that came with the business. But yeah, I didn't know anything about landscape. Other than I worked on the grounds crew in college, but that was mostly shoveling snow. And yeah, we just kind of figured our way. Cut a lot of grass, pulled a lot of weeds, trimmed, did it all. You've been there in the field with the guys, just head down doing the work.
And Tom, did you move to California at that point?
I did. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I left the company. We closed on it March 1st of 1985. Moved to California and found a place here and never. I'm a Midwest guy. I'm a freshwater, mountain kind of guy. Never thought I'd, be, along the shores of the Pacific Ocean because I grew up on Lake Superior.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
From northern Michigan, but it was, it was a risky move. It was a bold move, and I didn't think it was at the time. I didn't know a whole lot about anything, but yeah, we slowly started to build the business. I think we were billing about $14,000 a month, and the guy that we bought it from, he was a VP, a big wig in a multinational Japanese development company, and they were developing these industrial parks throughout Southern California, and they owned a bunch of commercial property. But this guy was really good to us. I mean, he gave us all his work. He fed us a lot of enhancements and really kept us in business. I mean,
wow.
I think, we were a $150,000 a year company, and you had to support, my salary, my dad's salary, who had a family. I was single. So things were pretty tight early on, but, slow and sure, we acquired some more accounts and, just continued to grow the business. And I'm glad that it was on the commercial side of things because it's all industrial properties. and that made it a lot easier. We moved over into HOA and retail and some other stuff, but that's kind of where we got our start. So,
Tom, at what point from 1985 to whenever did you guys feel like you hit it to where you said, "Hey, this is a legit business now. We're making good money. We're running," because I'm sure the first few years were really tough. Was it 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? At what point did you guys feel like you were really had something on your hands here beyond just maybe a hobby?
Yeah, I would say the turning point for us, and it was probably, I'm just guessing here, was probably about 5 years in, probably in around 1990 or so. We picked up a large industrial park in Poway, California. And part of it was city of Poway. The other part was this just big master plan industrial park. And it was brand new. It was a big developer out of Canada. It was a huge contract for us. I don't know. We sold this job to this board of directors, and, we got lucky, and you need a little luck in this business, right? Aside from the hard work, and we picked up this big contract. So we had a operation up in kind of north, San Diego and Carlsbad, and then we opened up a branch in Poway just for this one contract. And then we started picking up buildings within the park because we were doing all the common area. But it was probably about $70,000 a month. It was
Wow.
It was big.
And that's in $1990 too, right?
Yes, and everything was growing great. It was relatively new, so it wasn't spinning off a lot of enhancements, but, there were irrigation repairs, there was brush abatement because there was a lot of slopes and a lot of pads. But then, and I can't remember when the recession hit back in the 90s, but that contract went from 60 or 70 down to, I don't know, 2,000 a month.
Oh,
I mean, we laid off, I don't know how many guys, Justin, I'm just guessing here, 15 to 20 guys on a Friday afternoon when we found out. It was kind of Black Friday for us.
Gosh, right.
And it was crushing to lose that kind of revenue. Fortunately, at the time we had grown, so we were, even though it was a real kick in the pants, we were able to weather that storm and slowly work and climb our way out of it. But that was a defining moment for us. Really tested our wherewithal and perseverance, and just really hunkering down and dialing things back and in and getting it lean. So yeah.
Was there any specific thing you did after that recession in the mid-90s for the business? What was the biggest lesson you learned that you kind of changed how you operated going forward, if anything?
Well, one thing for your listeners, we had a lot of eggs in one basket, right? Mm-hmm. And that was a big account. And I can't remember because it was a long time ago what percentage of the revenue that represented, but it was large. And so, my advice is, diversify and, just be careful that you don't have any one customer that can sink the ship. You want to make sure that, you're well diversified, your portfolio. I mean, some people focus on HOAs, some people maybe multifamily, some on office industrial, and that's great. That, know your niche, stick with it. Mm-hmm. If you're great at it, then be the very best, right? But really diversifying your portfolio. We tried to have an average contract size that we wanted to meet, so we didn't have a lot of stops and starts during the day. But again, having a large contract, it's like COVID. Anything can happen, right, in this crazy world of ours and in landscaping. It's hard to predict. So you've just got to set yourself up for being able to weather those specific storms.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I always say, if you are going to take on some big accounts, make sure you have a really strong sales engine, because you can land a big account out of luck a lot of times, and then
right.
You're kind of beholden to that client on anything they want, or anything they do impacts your entire operation. So that's absolutely great advice. And
yeah,
we kind of got into that spot 2 years ago, and we've been selling our way out of it. So it was like 40% of our book, and now it's probably down below 15, maybe even below 10 now. But for a couple of years there, we were kind of a little bit concerned. So
Yeah, you never want the
great.
customer to have the leverage, right? We always tried to be really firm when we priced a job or we presented a bid for an RFP and somebody wanted us to negotiate. Of course, there's a lot of factors that are dependent there, but very seldom did we move on our price, because once you do that, now you're kind of, they're going to take advantage of you, right? Now they're going to try to negotiate that enhancement, or they're going to try to negotiate that because they know that you have a tendency to cave. But if you hold firm and say, hey, this is my price, I'm confident in the price, I think it's competitive, we're going to give you great service. If I cut my price, I'm going to have to cut something, and it's usually labor. Another good lesson that I learned is really just sticking to your guns. You have to know your pricing. You've got to be comfortable with it, know where your margins are going to be. But again, once you kind of acquiesce once, then the customer can, they can use that as leverage. So try to be careful of that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've definitely fallen into that trap, and it's not a fun one to be in. Usually those accounts end up being a lot of work and not a lot of profit.
Yeah.
And they just grind you through. So
yeah.
Yeah. We had one recently asking us to drop our hourly rate on our irrigation tech. And we said, look, most irrigation folks out there in California are irrigation, they're trained through hours in the field, not through any other type of association. And all of our teams are certified techs through the IA, and they go through a lot of training. We invest 3 months of training a year with these guys, keep them working full year, all 12 months. And so this client really had a big issue. And so we said, hey, you wanted to do this enhancement. How about if we get a contract going, we will do that enhancement on our dime to just show that we want to improve the property first day, first month. So they were stoked on that. They loved that idea. We ended up doing that. And in return, we kept our rate where we want to keep our rate, and we want to have that property for 10 or 20 years. And so,
right.
That $15 an hour over the course of 10 years, that's going to add up to a lot of money versus maybe a $3,000 or $4,000 enhancement. So that was a technique I recently used, although I don't like caving at all. But sometimes,
well, you have to
you
think long term. Right? You've got it. You're right. You think long term is what's going to be the value of this contract over 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I mean, for maintenance, for us, the first year, you may not be as profitable, but once you get that familiarity and you get that rhythm with that property, your crew has consistency and stability and becomes familiar, then you can really start to make good money. So it's all long-term thinking. Real quick, I remember a story from a client that a large contractor, well-known, big in our market, did a huge enhancement, $200,000-$300,000 enhancement on a multifamily. And there was one little piece of this corner of this property that was left out of the design, and they just wanted to put some mulch in. And it wasn't a lot. And this contractor charged them for the mulch, $200-$300. I don't know. I don't remember what it was, but it was minimal. And it put off the property manager so much that they ended up losing the entire portfolio because of it. It was like, hey, I just paid you $200,000 for this large enhancement. Now you're going to nickel and dime me on a little piece that, we forgot to include. So again, it's long-term thinking, it's relationship thinking, it's, what can I do to build loyalty here with this customer? Let's give them this little bit because, hey, we did really well on this enhancement, so let's not try to make a couple extra bucks. So
that's such great advice, especially for the newer account managers or even owners out there running businesses. If you watch the YouTube videos and you follow even some of my stuff, I'll be honest, like we talk a lot about profitability, and you want to be at that certain profit level. And sometimes I think we can get so focused on running a highly profitable business, we do nickel and dime our clients, and we forget about that long-term value. So that's just such a great reminder of that. And so, Tom, I want to kind of, you mentioned the recession in mid-90s. How did the 2008 market crash affect you guys? Was that a similar crash, or how was that for you guys?
I don't remember that as being as devastating as what we had, because we were larger then, and I don't want to say we're recession proof, but you still got to take care of landscapes. Probably a lot of our clients weren't spending as much on enhancements. We had to adjust budgets. An example, we did Callaway Golf, their properties. Well, they're not selling as many clubs, right? They've got cuts, and we want to be real sensitive to that. So we have conversations, with facility manager. Hey, where do you need us to be? How can we work with you on this? So I do remember we did have to readjust budgets and do some things like that, but not for every client, but really understanding their business. How is this recession impacting them, and how can you partner with them? Because again, you're thinking long term here. When this, it's going to turn around, and Callaway is going to take back off, and they have, and they did, and we got that contract back up where it needed to be, and even then some, and we built a ton of loyalty. So thinking in terms of that, but knowing your customer and how recessions impact them is really important. So you don't want to be going in for a cost of living increase if they're looking to reduce, their costs. So you want to be careful, because we never wanted to kind of wake them up. If we had a really good gross margin, maybe it's just a minimal increase, maybe it's no increase. And again, knowing your pricing, but if you're going in for an increase when they're looking to cut costs, it's, then they're going to put it out to bid. You can end up losing the contract. So
again, great advice. And you, two things. One is know your gross profit per property. That's so important. We really didn't know that until we onboarded Aspire, and now we have the data. So if we're looking at a property and it's 65% gross margin, we're like, let's throw some more labor on there, make sure they're super happy and not do an increase, versus just some type of everyone, no matter what, gets a 3% increase. I think you got to be a little more specific than that in today's market.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you look at those lower ones that are underproducing. Certainly, you want to look at the red, those under whatever your target gross margin is. But we looked at the top ones, and some were like, man, I hope they don't put this out to bid, because, I mean, we are crushing it. So like the same thing, let's put more labor on, or I'd say, hey, give them some flats of color or do something, just say, hey, we appreciate the partnership. We're going to redo the color at your entry monument, whatever it is. Give a little back, because, you're crushing it on the maintenance. So, yeah, it's good point.
It is. And I listened to a speaker yesterday on artificial intelligence. And one thing he said is he does a lot of consulting. And if he's going to meet with a client, he'll pull up ChatGPT and say, hey, Chat, I'm going to meet with this company. Look up their website. Look up what they do. Look up how they make money. Are the tariffs impacting them? Is immigration impacting them? What is their economy and their market? Are they up? Are they down? And a good example of this is anyone who is in agriculture right now in California is struggling not just with immigration, but Mexico's tariffs have ended up with a big dumping of product into the California market, because they want to try to get all the product across before these tariffs go in. And so, our ag clients, we're trying to understand, hey, how do we empathize with them in this situation? And then there's other people, that are doing really well in today's economy. So I think understanding your clients and using artificial intelligence or ChatGPT to give you a little bit of a data brief on them, it could be a great way going into your budget renewal season this year.
Thank you for that, because a little idea just popped in my mind. I won't share it, but we're looking at an RFP right now, so I'm going to use that. But that's such a smart move. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was impressed. So let's kind of fast forward here. You guys, you really built this company from the 85 purchase to when you eventually sold it in 2019. I want to talk about the 2019 exit, but was there anything really big, or was there a moment that you said, hey, we are going to grow this thing to 175 employees and we're going to build it? Was there intentionality and vision back there? Or was it just hard work, grit, and sweat equity you guys put into that?
No, we really were intentional about it. We built a really strong team, really smart people. I had a great CFO. We had strategic plan every year, 3-5 year strategic plan. We didn't use EOS or anything like that, but we developed a strategic plan around some other. Trying to think of who might have been the Great Game of Business or one of those.
Oh yeah.
Was or that Good to Great? Good to Great was another one.
Yeah, Jim Collins.
Yes, but we put together a really good roadmap to grow and to improve profitability, to measure that, and to do quarterly check-ins. And prior to that, quite honestly, this was a lifestyle business. My dad died suddenly 13 years in. Wow. In 98, and my world changed. He and I worked closely, hand in hand for 13 years, and all of a sudden, even though we were equal shareholders, he was the president. I was, I don't know what it was, vice president, maybe, give myself a title, but after he died, I moved into that, presidential role, and I moved more from operations into more, moving up to that 30,000 foot view, if you will. And that was when it really dawned on me. It's like, okay, I like this, because I was not an operational guy. I was kind of, I was an account manager, a project manager, was all these things. And I am lousy at those things. I'm not a, have every, item planned out my day. I'm kind of fly by the seat, which is not always good.
I'm with you there.
As you know. But when, unfortunate for my dad to pass away. And, but it really was like, wow, okay, this is different. I like this. I feel better here. I feel like this is a better fit. So I moved more out of the operations, hired those people to handle more of the field stuff, because I'm not a horticulturalist. And, my dirty little secret is I don't have this great love of horticulture and plants and things. I didn't go to Cal Poly or, BYU or, these hort schools or Oregon State like Bob Grover.
Right.
I mean, I love landscaping. I'm so happy that we fell into this. But if my dad was looking at a HVAC business or electrical plumbing, pick your service business, I said, hey, that sounds interesting. It just happened to be landscaping. And, back to my original thought was it was a lifestyle business, after my dad passed away, and we continued to grow and build it up. But it was great for me and for my family. We had a really strong team, and it allowed me to, lead the strategy and lead the direction and that type of thing, but travel with my family and do things that I wanted to do at an earlier age. I would take a month off. We'd rent an RV and go cross country, stuff like that, which was nice. Incredible. I didn't have to worry about the business. Certainly I was tapped in every day, checking emails, things like that, or a phone call, but very confident. But as we moved towards 2019, we were maybe in the first year of a 3-year plan. My CFO, Leanne Foles, who's an Aspire super user, just a terrific woman, really talented. We had everybody on our executive team had a master's, but yours truly, I was the dumb one in the boardroom there. And
that's what they say. Hire people smarter than you.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, I hope they don't find out about me. Gosh, I don't want the gig to be up. This is pretty fun. But everybody had MBAs, and Leanne had a master's in accounting, and who knows what else after her name. So many acronyms. But we had a really talented, smart team, and built a really nice plan, 3-year plan, to take us to a certain revenue level and profitability. And about a year in, we brought a guy on as a consultant who had an exit to Brightview, the groundskeeper. His name's Anil Hiremath, terrific guy, close friend today. Yeah, they had an exit to Brightview. They were about $75 million company. You may know Anil. He lives in Carlsbad, close to where my house is. But we were, my son Christian and myself and Anil were just sitting in my backyard, just kind of doing a little strategy session. He said, have you considered selling now? And I'm like, no, I haven't. We're growing. Things are really going well. And he said, well, I don't know how long this window is going to stay open, but you may want to, consider it. And he said, I'm happy to call Brightview. And I'm like, oh gosh, no, because Brightview in our market, San Diego, they were the biggest by far. I mean, huge.
Yeah.
And a great reputation. I mean, Josh Dake and his team, they did a really good job. And, Brickman before that and Brookwood before that, they were all really solid premier companies that did really good work in our market. They were kind of the leader and the benchmark for the rest of us, and they were big. But anyways, Anil set up a phone call with, or called Jeff Harold, who was the COO of Brightview at the time, and said, hey, Andrew Masterman, the CEO, is up in Orange County. Love to come down and meet you for dinner. Again, long story short, we're off to the races. Andrew and I hit it off. Ed Bates, his M&A guy, came out, a week or two later. We met, had a good meeting, and then, ended up getting a deal done. That was probably August when I first met Andrew. September, we got the LOI signed, and we closed on November 1st. So
wow, that's quick.
Yeah, it was. And Brightview was doing deals. They're really good at it. Yeah. And to their credit, they were really good to work with. I had a really good M&A attorney, and he worked well with their team. And, they weren't big bullies. They didn't, there were some things because, they're a publicly traded company. We can't move on this one. But other things they did move on. And so they were good to deal with. And that's one of the reasons why I ended up, I worked a year through transition and then stayed on and worked with their merger and acquisition team. But, I don't know what other questions you might have around that, but that's kind of the short story there.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing. I think as I listen to that, a few things pop out. One is the reputation. And I said this on a podcast a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Brightview has gotten, the reputation they've gotten today, and different people think different things. But overall, it's not been a great reputation on a national level. But I know in the Southern California market, especially in 2019, like we would study Brightview because they were this, elite big company that we looked up to. And I think first off, it's worth mentioning that. And secondly, my question is, when you sat down with them, in as much as you could share about this, what were some of the things that they really valued about your business that they really saw as the shiny object within your operation?
Yeah, good question. We weren't the biggest. I mean, there are other big companies bigger than us, platform-sized companies. I wouldn't consider ourselves a platform in San Diego market, but we had a great brand. I mean, we really did. I think people respected us. We did really good work. We were competitive. I wasn't afraid to go head to head with Brightview on RFPs. I felt we had an advantage because you could pick up the phone and call Tom Heaviland if you had a problem. You'd have a tougher time getting a hold of, Scott Brickman, maybe, but I think it'd be a little tougher. So, we just, we had really built something nice and remarkable, I think. And, we had a good reputation, not only in our market in San Diego, but I think in the industry. And we had a great team and we had a great book of business. When you look at, the employees and the customer contracts that were well priced and nice margin. We had a high penetration rate, which is important. We were north of 65% on our pen rate. We had a good track record of safety. That's so important is, you can't take your foot off the pedal there. You've got to stay on and manage your safety and have a good program in place. We e-verified. There was value there. Not many people did, but we got audited twice by the INS. After the first one, we moved to E-Verify, and the second one, even though we still lost, let me think about this. Maybe it was E-Verify after the second one, but after the second audit, we lost maybe 10 to 12 guys, and then, we e-verified from then on, I think it was. And that's not always easy, because,
No.
as you're growing and you're adding labor, it's a real challenge. But our admin team got really good at looking at documents and knowing if they were, authentic, valid docs. And they went through training with the INS, Immigration and Naturalization Services, to really understand what to look for. And they would tell applicants, hey, please save yourself time, save me time or us time. If these aren't going to pass, e-verify, then, you might as well head down the street. So we, I think, with Brightview being publicly traded, I think it helped us that, we had a legit workforce. And again, it wasn't easy. I had friends, in the market that lost, when they got audited, 50%, 100 plus guys, devastating.
That's a hard
stuff.
hit.
Yeah.
It's a hard hit.
But again, California is not an e-verify state. And, we rely on, immigrant labor to get the job done, as being in Northern Cal. And trying to find quality people is difficult if you're not tapped into H-2B. We weren't. So.
And in today's climate, second half of 2025 here, I mean, this is a huge topic, obviously, in our industry with the ICE raids that we've seen and everything else. I think e-verify is becoming a massive strategic advantage for companies looking to exit. So was there a focus on, I'm sure it was, it's kind of a no-brainer, but on your revenue mix of that maintenance versus construction? For those who don't know your business, what was the business mix when you were in that late 2019 exit stage?
Yeah, we were, we had basically, three service lines. We had maintenance, enhancement, construction pre-2019. And I had a, tremendous team running our construction division, really sharp, VP of that division, and then a great project manager oversaw the field operations. Two terrific guys. But we made a decision probably in 2018 that we weren't a construction company. We weren't built for it. We didn't want to, be in that competitive, environment or arena. We didn't want to play in that sandbox. So we made a decision, and it wasn't easy to close that division and put more of our emphasis and efforts into growing our enhancements and our irrigation divisions. So, and we did that. And, we saw the profitability jump. I mean,
oh yeah,
with Aspire, we were forcing high margins on every enhancement estimate, and we had a great incentive plan in place for the guys to go out and meet that and hit it. And so we pushed the enhancements up, and we pushed the margins up, and it really improved the profitability overall of the company. Again, it was a decision that we made, or I made, to go in a different direction. And again, it was one of those ones. It's like, if we're going to sell, we think, there's more value here in these two buckets of maintenance, recurring revenue, and enhancements with a high pen rate, high margins. And that worked well for us.
Yeah, I got to imagine, too, you were able to move some of those really well-trained and experienced construction team members over to enhancements. And for anyone out there doing maintenance and enhancements and that has a construction business like we do have that today, I mean, our best guys are in the construction business. They're
right.
doing that stuff. They're not in enhancements because we kind of are like, mulch is easy. But then all of a sudden you got all these like retaining walls that you're doing and higher level enhancements that you're able to perform and perform at a higher margin. So I think that was some great foresight then. Now going through this, you guys had this 3-year plan. Was this part of that 3-year plan was to really, get this business to have a single focus around that commercial maintenance aspect?
Yes, it was. I wouldn't say it was part of the plan. I think it came either, I think the plan was, the new 3-year plan was 2018, 19, 20. It was going to be the 3 years. But it was just talking with Anil, who with groundskeeper had big construction component, and just talking through with him, the margins and having to the retention and stuff at the end of the contract, 90-day maintenance. We got burned on a couple of construction jobs. I mean, we did a preschool. It was a little over $100,000. Well, the school didn't open on time because the other contractors on the job, kind of screwed up, got delayed. So, they didn't get paid, so we didn't get paid. The general didn't get paid from the owner, so we didn't get paid from the general, and it was kind of this domino effect. So we ended up leaning the property. I spent probably $100,000 in legal fees just to collect the $100,000 they owed us, and we got paid, but it was. We got paid. It was after I sold. It was like Christmas morning. It was like, oh, hey, $100,000. It was like 5 years later or whatever. But
wow,
we just weren't built to absorb those kinds of stickiness when it comes to construction. There are companies out there that are great at it. You're great at it. You understand it. It wasn't our niche. It was, something we did because we had generals that asked us to bid, or we had clients that wanted us to do it. If it was a client, we would still do it. But,
yeah. At that point, they're building another building at their facility or their business park. It almost becomes an enhancement at that point. It's just, and you probably have the talent. But yeah, it's funny. Our only project in all of these years that we've had an issue with was also a school. It was a college, but it was also a school, and contractors didn't finish on time. Long story short, we ended up getting half the money and spent half of it on legal fees. It was not great, but
well, they opened this school up. These little kids were running around just tearing everything apart. The grass, the pulling flowers off, and they're like, we do these walk. Hey, look at this shrub, and we're like, well, yeah, look at these kids over here pulling on this. I was like, what do you want us to do? I'm like, just replace it. Don't give them a reason not to pay us. So.
Exactly, and then you're just replacing it to replace it. Yeah,
gosh,
the school work's a dog, and it's hard. You got summer to hit it. Yeah. So good Tom, memories. I want to. It's good memories though. It's fun. Oh man, I could go on and on about some school jobs that we've had. I want to talk a little bit about this next step in your career as you went from a business owner and then now you're working within the Brightview team, helping their M&A side of things. What was that like? You got to probably look at a lot of businesses for sale. You got to probably analyze the market and understand what's going on at a deep level. Tell us a little bit about what was your job for those listening that don't know, and then maybe let's talk a little bit about some of those things that you learned in the marketplace.
Sure. Yeah, with Brightview, I worked on the M&A for about 2 years, maybe not quite. Worked with or under Ed Bates, who was the VP of M&A for Brightview. Learned a tremendous amount from that guy, just a sharp guy. And my task was primarily in those markets where Brightview didn't have a branch operation. So I was these smaller middle markets like a Boise or a Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Spokane, primarily west of the Mississippi. And so, my thing was I'd go into a market at Tulsa and I'd find the nearest Site One. I'd go into the Site One. Hi, I'm Tom Heaviland with Brightview. Like to talk to the manager or your sales guy, and would meet with them. Who are the players in the market? Who are your big commercial maintenance contractors that have a presence here? Typically, because I was with Brightview and we were a big client of Site One, they would give me that information. Not always, they wanted to respect, and I didn't push them because some people are a little cautious about names and contacts giving out, but usually it was pretty fine. So I would just get on the phone and just start calling. And, I'm looking for, owners, men and women like me that are baby boomers that are, north of 60 years old, that have run their company for 30 plus years, that are looking to retire. And, they're out there, not always easy to find. A lot of them have legacy, family members coming up. behind them that are going to take over the business. But that was my strategy, and just looking to plug in and fill in a branch operation, if you will, in a middle market, because Brightview was, subbing all their snow work, all their tree work, everything for their national accounts in these markets, whether it's Amazon or Home Depot or whatever. So that's what I did, and I met a lot of tremendous business owners and people. I poured over a lot of, P&Ls, and, with us, with Brightview and where I'm at today, it's, we weren't in the business of trying to fix companies. We wanted to buy really well-run companies with good teams, good book of business, and showing double-digit EBITDA. That was kind of our benchmark. We didn't want to find a company that was doing 5, 6, 7%. Because we didn't want to come in and have to turn them around. So there's companies that do that, and there's people that do that, and they do it really well. And those are, there's great opportunities out there, and you're probably going to buy it at a discount. We were looking to buy companies at fair market price, whatever that multiple was in that range. We weren't looking for great deals or discounts, but we wanted to buy really good companies and build a portfolio from there.
Yeah, I love this. And this is, I think, an area that I'd love to zone in on a little bit in this podcast, because I think today's market, there are more people today than ever who are in that position, that are the baby boomers or just looking to retire, looking to step out. And maybe they don't have a double-digit EBITDA. Maybe they don't have that great team, but they really, it behooves them to spend a year or two building that, getting to that point where then they can actually sell something. So when you were looking at these businesses, was there a number? And obviously we're in a different age today. So just to clarify, you're not speaking for or to any Brightview companies today, but when you were in there, back in, and what was that dollar value? Was there $1 million in EBITDA you wanted to see, or was there a certain volume that you were looking for when you were in these markets?
Yeah, I would say the $1 million was minimum. Because I mean, doing a deal and the amount of effort and resources and the cost that goes in, I just look at my deal, when they, I can't remember what Brightview spent on IT alone to convert all the IT and stuff. It was a big number, so there's a lot that goes into it. So if you're going to do a deal, you've got to have some benchmarks that you want to look at, and you want these companies to be at a profitability. So, and I looked at companies and I'm like, it's not going to be a meaningful event for you. You've run this company for 30 years, and this is the value. And if you're looking for something up here, we're not going to be able to deliver on that. You need to be, here with your profitability and whatever else you need to work on. But yeah, sometimes it was hard to let, business owners know that, really there's not a lot of value right now. And I always said, hey, I'm willing to help you if you need help in where you can square things away and focus your attention. But a lot of them didn't have operating systems. They weren't job costing. They didn't have an estimating system. They didn't know cost structure. It's not bad, but it's not great, because, you look at work and you see that it's underpriced. And when you acquire a company and you try to get increases, well, you look like the bad guy, the private equity guy or the big strategic buyer. Like, well, they come in, now they're kicking up our prices. They're probably cutting labor, things like that. So that's why you want to be careful and make sure, when you're looking at owners or at businesses, that, they really understand, the financial piece of their business and how to direct that and make decisions around it. So,
yeah, that's a great point. Just the financial side of things and understanding the financials. And, there's really no excuse today with YouTube and, Greg Herring does all these webinars for free. There's really no reason not to understand. He explains it so simply. Greg's mentored me for 5 years, and I can figure my way around a P&L and a balance sheet. But after working with Greg, I know what to look for. I know how to structure it, and just, Tom, when you look at a P&L and it's not structured right, you got revenue and then you got costs and then you got net profit. There's no overhead. There's no breakout of direct labor versus overhead labor, materials versus shop costs. I mean, that alone right there is such a red flag when you're looking at a business. And that business could, just with a few months of working with a consultant, could get that P&L structured and probably just present so much better to someone in the market. So I think the financial piece is really keen. What else beyond the double-digit EBITDA, the volume, the financials? What about the culture and the brand? How much of that were you looking at in some of these markets?
Yeah. Just one other thing about the financial piece, if I can.
Please.
I went to my CPA, my accountant, I said, walk me through a P&L, walk me through a balance sheet, walk me through a cash flow statement, help me understand how my tax return for the company lines up, with this and what to look for. So don't be afraid to do that. Don't be, I was a business major, but, I wasn't an accounting major. I didn't know a debit from a credit, so
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. Or like you said about Greg Herring, he loves doing that stuff. The guy is such a great mentor to many and has done, great things for our industry. But take time, whether it's YouTube or whatever, to really learn and understand and keep pouring through it. What are the key ratios, liquidity ratios, leverage ratios, all the ratios, because the balance sheet's an important part of your business, the heartbeat of the business. You can show money on, you're making money on the P&L, but, if you can't service your debt, you're going to run yourself into the ground. So I appreciate just the opportunity to speak to that. What was your question?
No, thank you. That cannot be overstated because the balance sheet is such a important document that so few people look at. And more businesses will die from lack of cash and lack of profit.
Right.
And I remember it was, I must have been 20, 21 years old. And I went to my mom and I was kind of starting to understand the business a little bit. And I go, why our profit says $200,000, but we don't have $200,000 in the bank. Like, what's going on? I don't understand this. Help me understand this. And she just kind of laughed. She's like, that's not how it works. Your profit is not your bank account. And oftentimes your bank account's quite a bit lower than your profit. So yeah, that just shows my ignorance when I was a kid. And it's a really great thing to understand and be able to walk through and understand those ratios.
There's a good book out in our industry by, do you know Frank Ross?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Frank is an industry icon. I mean, another gentleman, just a terrific guy. Wrote Pricing for the Green Industry. I don't know how many editions now, but I mean, that was our, Bible. Leanne had that thing dog-eared and, paper clipped and everything else. But that's, building your budget, to echo what the industry is so you can benchmark with the rest of the industry and how to put together a budget. I mean, it's anybody I come across and I'm either consulting with or, has a question, buy this book, because it will serve you very well. So little
great plug
for Frank. Yeah.
And great plug. And that's a great book. I've read it. I'd also recommend one by Greg Crabtree called Simple Numbers, Straight Talk, Big Profits. It unpacks these ratios and the management efficiency ratio and the labor efficiency ratio, just some things, because today, our overhead can bloat up so quickly when you're going from 5 to 10 million,
right.
10 to 20 million. I've been there. One year we're making 15%. The next year we're making 5%. And you're like, what happened? Well, you hired all these overhead people and you didn't grow your revenue. So, yeah.
Well, you're growing and then you'll level off because you got to hire. And then you'll grow again. It continues to balance itself out, but you're going to have times where you're not showing that same type of profitability because you're that right guy or gal comes along. It was like, we got to hire this person. We're going to find a place for him. I don't care where it is, but if we're building a team here, we need this person. So
yeah, and that right there, great piece of advice, right? How important, Tom, has the people been for you over your career over the last 30 years here?
Well, it's no secret, a strong culture translates into bottom line profit. They've done studies, all over the place, whether it's, Bain Capital or Harvard Business Review, that, that if you've got a strong culture, it usually will translate into, increase in profits. And so it's something that, not going to happen overnight. It can get damaged. Again, it's, if I look back on the mistakes I've made, most of them have been in hiring, right? And they set you back because it costs you a lot of money to get somebody up to speed and trained and into the position, only to find out that they're not the right person. And now, you've got the angst of figuring out when's the best time to call this person into my office and let them know, they're not a good fit. And I never did as good of a job as I should have in really managing performance and having those talks that says, hey, you're doing great here, but here's where we need to see some improvements. So, when you're having that conversation, this is the expectation. But there were times where, I blindsided people, and that's on me. That's my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't prepare them that they weren't performing at a level that was acceptable or that I needed to see, or their company needed to see. And, when you come in and say, hey, we're going to let you go, they're like, what? Why? And so, that's on me. And those are, that was poor leadership, plain and simple, that we didn't have something in place that said, hey, we're going to do a review every quarter. Here are the deliverables we want to see, and we're going to measure those. And, we eventually got those in place. So it makes that process a little more black and white, even though it's not easy because you're dealing with people's lives here, especially at a high management level. And but when they know and that they haven't delivered and it's probably not a good fit, in most cases, after I've let somebody go and they found the right spot, man, they've just blossomed. So, and for me, that's happy to see. And I always want people to land on their feet, kind of with a parachute. So I do everything I can to make sure that, that happens. But, culture is so important. And, you're with these people all day long, more than your family. And you want to work with people you like and you trust. And if you don't, you're going to struggle with that. So,
yeah, that's such a great experience here of that expectation alignment, because it's so much easier to have those small conversations around, performance than it is to just fire someone. And we kind of have a rule at K&D. We say anytime someone comes up, says, hey, I think we should let so-and-so go, I say, will they be surprised? And if the answer is, yeah, they'll probably be a bit caught off guard. They'll be a bit surprised. I go, well, then we haven't done our job. Let's talk to them and at least one more time and let them know that, hey, your job's on the line here. And sometimes those conversations have ended with that person actually resigning with a bit of a parachute, as you said. And they knew they weren't going to turn it around, and that was fine. But the last thing we want to do is catch someone off guard on a Friday morning that, this job they thought they were doing great at, they no longer have. That's our responsibility as leaders.
Yeah,
that's
right.
a big responsibility.
Yeah, it is. It's a huge responsibility. And if you want to build that culture, people have to know that, we've got certain, deliverables and expectations. They're going to be high because we feel like we're going to pay you above market and give you good benefits. And, so if they don't deliver, you want that decision almost to be theirs, right? It's like, and in most cases, as we know, it just wasn't a good fit. They weren't in the right spot. So, yeah.
So, on a lighter note, I want to talk about
thank you.
Your operation today, Verde Property Services, and what you guys have built. Just an amazing platform here, and one of the fastest, maybe the fastest growing top 100 company on the 2024 list there for lawn and landscape. Just some amazing numbers, and I've just heard great things. So, love for you to just share a little bit about what you guys are doing in this next venture here.
Well, we are growing fast through acquisition, but I just opened up Lawn and Landscape, little news thing this morning. See, Landscape Workshop did another acquisition. I'm like, my gosh,
Oh my
these
God, every week.
guys are a machine. I mean, they've got a formula, and it's so impressive what JT and his team have done there. It's like now they're in Kansas City. It's like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
I'm going to call Donald Trump and tell him build a wall, along the Mississippi River. Let's keep them
I'll
out of
pitch in
here.
on that.
Yeah. So they're marching west. But yeah, I joined Verde Property Services back in July of 2023, shortly after leaving Brightview. And they hired me as the CEO of their operating company. Verde Equity Fund is a private equity fund doing roll-ups in the landscape space. And they had already had acquired a couple of companies, small companies. They were around $6 million in revenues when I joined. We're forecasting, right around $45 million this year. That's if we
Incredible.
don't do any more acquisition. We've got a very robust pipeline. We've got a couple of companies under LOI right now, two in due diligence that we're working on. So, yeah, the idea is to grow organically because that shows well to, future buyers but also to grow and add EBITDA through acquisition of good companies.
Yeah. And where are you guys focused right now as far as geography?
Yeah, we're California, north and south. We're not in Nevada, but we like Las Vegas and Reno, and we did our first acquisition last year at the end of the year 2024 in Tucson. So we like the Arizona market. Those three markets California, Nevada, Arizona are our markets that we're focused on right now. If something attractive came up in Texas or Colorado or, somewhere else, Washington State, we take a look. But right now, trying to avoid snow because we don't know snow.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And, there's just so many opportunities kind of in this tri-state Southwest region.
Oh my gosh.
There's really no need for us to go at this time and look outside of those markets. So, yeah, so
Yeah. Well, Las Vegas, I mean, I flew in there in my little plane the other day, and I just got the full effect of the sprawling desert. It is insane how big that metropolitan area has gotten and how much large HOA communities there are out there. And it's an incredible market. So for people listening, and I think there's a lot of people who are on that march to build a sellable, exitable business that they could sell to someone like Verde. Who are you guys looking for? What would be kind of like some of the definitions of a potential purchase that you guys would be looking to make?
Yeah, again, we like to see the EBITDA somewhere $1 million or north. We like the recurring revenue, so we're after commercial maintenance companies that have high pen rates in enhancements. Yeah. We love tree. We're looking at tree companies and maintenance companies that have a tree division. We like that piece as well. So, it can range from 5 million to 10 million, or we'll do platform size companies over 20 million, like we did with Le Bon's here in San Diego. So, again, good companies with good customer base, good teams in place. I can't say that every acquisition we've done, they've had great, accounting and pricing and that type of thing. But we're able to work with that. We do move them to Aspire eventually because we want all our companies on Aspire. So that can be a big lift for companies that really don't have an operating system in place. And even if they do, changing it from something. Fortunately, we've done a couple of deals that have Aspire, which has made it a little easier and rolling it over onto our instance. But yeah, so we're continuing to pursue and hope to close on at least 3 to 4 more deals before we close out 2025 here. We'd like to be at 100 million or north of 100 million by the end of the year is our target.
Love that. That's incredible. That's incredible growth. And I've met a lot of the team there, and I've got to say, Tom, you guys have built just such an incredible team. I've seen a lot of these platforms kind of start up in the last 5 years, and I definitely pay attention to those in California a little bit closer just because we're here. And it's,
Yeah.
I got to say, you guys have built something pretty special here. And it's great because I do see there's some others that, I'm not going to name any names, that maybe aren't as industry focused. And I feel like what you guys have done, and I'll, there, like I said, I won't put any other names. There's a few others out there that I put in your bucket that I think are doing the right things for the industry, building it the right way. And it's really exciting to see. And we're at an amazing time. So I just want to say, congrats on that.
Thank you. Yeah, your listeners, there are a lot of options today, as you know. I mean, whether it's strategic, private equity, ESOP, there's a lot of different ways you can go, and there's a lot of different groups out there. So, doing your homework and talking, before I sold to Brightview, I talked to 3 or 4 companies that had sold to Brightview previously, previous to my exit, to see how it went for them. And they had all had a good experience. So yeah, there's a lot of choices in making sure that you're ready for that. But yeah, I mean, private equity is different. I'm not going to lie. It's a different game than owning your own business. And I mean, even when I went to, when I sold, I went to work for Brightview. I had a hard time calling somebody my boss. I was like,
I bet.
I don't. He's my colleague. He's not my boss. It was really tough. Ed was, Josh Dake was my boss. He was, VP over the region, and then Ed was my boss. So when you're used to, being the owner and being the president and making the decisions, when you give that up and somebody else is doing that now, and you're having to fall in line, it's a different thing. So I'm fortunate with Verde, and we'd love to be considered, certainly, but again, you've got a lot of choices out there. But the team that we have, our operations team, a lot of them were folks that I worked with at Heaviland Landscape Management. Our COO, Chris Gillespie, was our VP of operations, just a terrific guy, real sharp, great operator. He was president of LeBon's Landscaping, and he took them from $7 million to north of $20 million. And
Wow.
He's done a great job for us. VP of sales and marketing, Addie Stathato, she was on our team at Haviland. Brilliant, sales and marketing woman. And probably another 10, branch managers, production managers, account managers that worked for us and were with LeBon's primarily, are now on the Verde team. So it's fun to have, Old Home Week, I guess, working with this group again, different deal with the private equity backed, and a little more at stake here because, we've got investors now that we have to think about, and we are charged with delivering on an expectation that is going to provide a nice return for the investors. So I wouldn't say it's, pressure, stress racking, but there is pressure there. There is some stress there to deliver, and you want to do the very best you can. So that's the challenge. That's why I'm still working.
Yeah.
I love it. So.
Well, it sounds like a challenge worth fighting. And do you feel like the pressure of the investors and the return in a way helps the operation be a little more aware and be a little more tight on how you guys operate, how you run, looking back to before, mid 2015, 2016, before you guys are having those investors today?
Yeah, I tell them, and they laugh. I say, hey, every dollar we spend or waste, put a multiple on it, because I mean, if we waste $100, 10x that, okay, it's 1,000,
easy,
or whatever,
yeah.
So there's a little more scrutiny. It's like, is this a need or a want? So when we spend, it's got to be justified. We've got to have a really good reason for it. There's 2 things I hate: wasting time and wasting money. And, Christian, my wife, my family will tell you that. I do not, I don't know if you're going to be in Las Vegas for the Lawn and Landscape Technology Conference. I'll be there. I'm not a gambler, so if I lost $20 at a table, I'll be like, oh, shoot, that's $20 I could have, spent elsewhere. So, but I am a risk taker. I'm just not a gambler. So it's, I wouldn't say there's pressure from the investors because we don't have really any contact. I deal directly with our general partners, the four guys, and they're all terrific. I mean, each one, well, you've met them. Each one is
incredible group.
They're unique. They're extremely bright. They're so supportive, and they're a great resource for our team if we need it, whether it's legal, whether it's real estate, whether it's finance or accounting. They're there to support us, and because of who they are, it just makes you want to really deliver a nice outcome for them because, this is their first fund, and we want to see that it's successful. So they're going to want to do more funds. I'm not sure what my plans are after this.
Well, I won't ask you that hard question, but that. It sounds like it's too. I mean, for you, and I think I fall in the same category. It's not so much the pressure from investors, but it's a desire to win, and it's a desire to put up a nice W on the scoreboard, whatever that means, whether it's for the investor or for us or for our team or for the industry. I don't know if it matters too much who it's for. It's just the fact that here's the goal, here's what we're trying to accomplish, and not only do we want to win, but we want to win at the highest level possible. Fulfill that full potential. That's kind of how I approach pretty much everything in my life.
That's a great outlook. And we have this discussion with the GPs. It's funny. It's like, do you hate to lose more than you like to win? And, it's kind of split. I like to win because I think losing, even though I don't like to lose, nobody does, right? But losing, there's something about it that it's an opportunity to learn, to build character, especially if it's a hard loss, if you're an athlete or, wherever that, place can be where, you can lose. There's something about it that gives you that fortitude or that strength now to even do more, do better. So, but I'm on the like to win side. Love to win and, want to win more for the GPs, but for our team too, because, there's something in it for them as well. And, nothing makes, as as an owner, makes you happier than seeing others around you really, be part of that success. I mean, that's so cool. And it just makes it fun and that's the way it should work. Not always, but, that's our desire.
If there's one thing I could say about the private equity movement that I am the biggest fan of, it's the employee equity component that they've introduced to our market, which before was, maybe you had a point here or phantom stock there, or profit sharing here. But, when you really carve out 12 to 15% of the actual equity pool to go to employee owners, that's really, I think, what's exciting for me, and seeing some of these folks, and we've seen some of these bigger platforms turn over, and some of these people turn into millionaires overnight who were great, hardworking industry people, and we don't have the big tech exits that make millionaires, but we do have some nice exits that are being created. And we're seeing some amazing wealth creation happen in the green industry. And so if there's one thing I could point to, I would say it's that.
Yeah. We love it when owners want to roll equity into our fund and maybe distribute a little bit of that to their leadership team. It's cool to see. So we love it when they've got some skin in the game and they're bought into what we're trying to do. I don't know if you saw, was it on 60 Minutes, the big private equity group, BlackRock, Blackstone?
Yep. BlackRock, I think.
BlackRock, that they did a whole thing where they're just what you mentioned, where they're giving equity to the employees, and it really gets everybody on board and fired up to go out. And there has been some huge wins. I mean, just huge. And again, it's the win should be for everybody, right? It shouldn't be for a select few. It needs to be for the whole team.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got our 10-year goal is huge by 2035, and a big part of that, though, is we want to generate $150 million worth of employee wealth at our 2035 exit. And whatever that exit looks like is, if we can hit that number, 150 million, I mean, that'd be incredibly amazing. It's a BHAG, obviously. It's a big goal for a reason. But, that more than revenue, valuation, any other metric that drives our 10-year focus, it's the employee wealth that we're trying to create is really what gets me up every day and holds me back from, maybe taking a little bit of an easier path on a daily basis.
There's magic in that. Even though it's a BHAG, there's magic in writing your goals down, even handwriting them. They say there's a connection between writing it and, having it up here. There's a connection. And I've always been a big goal setter my whole life. And, you can write them down, put them in the drawer, you forget about them, you open them up at the end of the year, like, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this, I accomplished this. It's amazing. It's like magic. I don't know what it is. The world conspires to see that you achieve your goals. So I applaud you for setting such a lofty one for your employees. And I have no doubt you'll hit it. It's very admirable, and it's why you've got loyalty with your team. So
yeah, thanks, Tom. I completely agree on the goal setting. Wow, we could probably talk. We could keep going, but I know we set kind of an hour. We're over that for this, so I want to ask the last question. It's kind of our signature question called "What's your trade secret?" And so, it's what's the one thing that you want to leave our audience with that is your trade secret, something you've learned over your 40 years doing this, and you've shared so much already. What would be maybe one piece of advice you'd give the listeners today?
It's serve others first. That whole servant leadership philosophy, I'm completely bought into it. It's serve, serve, serve. Even if two people are going for that same job, I just read this on Simon
Sinek?
Sinek, yeah. Just had a thing on that. Did you see that? Two people going for the same job. Instead of being an adversarial, it's like, what can I do to support that person in his endeavor? So it's building people up. It's serving others before your own self-interest. And as an owner like you and I, when I own my company, it's really hard because you're the owner. It's like, I need you to do this, or I want you to, can you handle this for me? But it's, trying to think, how can I serve the people that are on my team to ensure that they're successful, have every resource they need. And in doing so, I know that I'm going to be taken care of ultimately. So, and it's hard, especially in the production ranks, because it's, if I do something for him, he's going to get ahead of me. He's going to get that promotion. It's all about trying to push people down versus build people up. And we talked a lot about that with our teams. It's like, hey, when you see somebody loading a burlap, help them out. Or you see somebody doing this, help them out, even if they're not on your crew. So that would be my trade secret is, serve first. And if you do that, you'll achieve significant success in your career. So, that's what I've got.
Thank you for that. That's profound, and I completely agree with that methodology and that approach to leadership. You look at any really successful person out there, and successful, I mean, they're happy, they're financially successful, they've impacted others' lives. I mean, that's what we're here to do, is leave an impact, leave a legacy. And that's a great end to the show. So Tom, thank you so much for being on. You shared so much. This is going to be a signature episode I'm going to come back to 100%. So
well, I hope it was of value to your listeners. Thank you for having me on. I'm like, that's going to be hard to top after listening to you and my son on the previous trade talk. I said, gosh, these guys are so smart and such have such energy. So thank you for having me.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thank you. Thanks
All
for
right.
the time. All right. We'll see you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Trades Talk, where the next generation of disruptors comes to raise the bar. If you got value from today's episode, share it with someone in the trades who's ready to level up. For more tools, insights, and community, follow host Justin White and join the movement at jwhitegroup.com.